In this work, we proved the properties of an array of one-dimensional trapped Bose gases by measuring both the energy and the momentum imparted to the system via inelastic light scattering.
Stimulated scattering of light or particles is a powerful tool to investigate the properties of matter in different states as solids, liquids, or gases. Recently, it was also used to study cold atomic systems. In this context, it is known as Bragg spectroscopy.
In this experiment, we produce an array of one-dimensional Bose gases by loading a rubidium Bose-Einstein condensate in a two-dimensional optical lattice. The lattice is intense enough to produce an array of inhomogeneous and independent one-dimensional gases harmonically trapped along the longitudinal direction.
We impart to the system an excitation by two simultaneous off-resonance laser pulses of time duration Tb producing a potential Vb. The angle between the Bragg beams fixes the momentum which is along the tubes, while their frequencies is varied.
In order to know if the system acquired the excitation produced by the Bragg beams, two different observables can be used, either the energy increase delta E or the change in the momentum delta P. For a homogeneous system, these two quantities are both proportional to the dynamical structure factor S.
For a trapped gas, the momentum is not a conserved quantity. The proportionality within delta P and S only holds provided that the duration of the Bragg pulse is long compared to the inverse of its frequency, and short compared to the inverse of the longitudinal trap frequency omega x.
In our setup, the second condition is not strictly valid, which may produce an effect of the interrupt dynamics on the measured momentum transfer.
To measure the increase in energy, after the Bragg pulse, we reduce the height of the optical lattices to enter a regime where the particles can tunnel between different tubes and the temperature can re-equilibrate. We then switch off the lattices and let the system expand ballistically.
After a time of flight, we record the density distribution of the atomic cloud and we measure the size sigma x, y, and z of the central peak, which square is proportional to the energy of the system.
This graph shows the spectrum obtained.
To measure the momentum transfer by the Bragg excitation, the atoms are abruptly released from the trapping potential so that interrupt momentum is mapped into the atomic density distribution after the time of flight.
When the Bragg perturbation is out of resonance, we detect a single atomic cloud, while when the Bragg is on resonance, momentum is transferred efficiently and the time of flight images of the density distribution exhibits a small cloud of excited atoms ejected from the main cloud, which changes with the frequency of the excitation as shown in the video.
The graph shows the spectrum obtained measuring the center of mass of the expanded density distribution as a function of the difference in frequency of the Bragg beams. It shows a much smaller susceptibility and a much broader signal with respect to the same signal obtained from an expanded three-dimensional condensate.
The comparison of the fitted parameters, center and width of a Gaussian line, obtained measuring both the energy and the momentum transfer, shows that the results are consistent. Then, we conclude that in our regime of parameters, both experimental approaches measure the same quantity, provided that delta P is measured soon after the Bragg pulse.
As already stated, for a trapped system, as it is in our experiment, the momentum is not a conserved quantity.
To analyze more in depth the possible effect of the interrupt dynamics, we measure delta P adding after the Bragg pulse a variable evolution time Tc before the expansion.
When the evolution time varies from 0 to 10 milliseconds, we observe first a suppression of the signal and then a modification of its shape.
A general result is that the average momentum evolves in the trap according to equation 1, where both the average position and the average velocity immediately after the Bragg pulse enter.
If the Bragg pulse duration is comparable with the trap period, which in our case is 16 milliseconds, not only the momentum distribution of the atomic ensemble, but also its spatial distribution may undergo a modification during the Bragg pulse, and this affects in a non-trivial way the spectrum.
The analysis performed in our work can be useful for interpreting the results of scattering experiments also in other more complex settings of ultracold gases in optical lattices or disordered potentials.